Welcome back to another episode of DEC Does What? I'm your host, Sean Mahar, and joined by Erica Ringwald, our Chief of Staff here.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, so Erica, coming out of Earth Week here, it was a busy week here at Team DEC.
Always.
And Arbor Day was awesome. Got to plant some trees.
Amazing.
Good stuff. But what are some of the other news of the week? I know it's spring. The birds are back in town. What are we seeing and hearing about here at DEC?
Well, it's not just the birds. It's spring, so all the critters are out and about. Recently, we've been telling New Yorkers it's time to be bear-wise. The bears are coming out. They're hungry. Don't leave food out for the bears. To reduce potential conflicts with bears, there's a few easy things you can do. Clean your grill. Keep your pet food inside. Take down your bird feeders. Otherwise, you run the risk of basically inviting bears into your backyard.
That's not what we want.
Number one thing, don't feed the bears.
No. Very good words of wisdom here, but you did mention birds and feeding birds, and obviously bear season, we want to avoid keeping bird feeders out, but the birds are back in town. What are we seeing and hearing?
The birds are back in town. It's funny that you said hearing, but DEC and our partners at the Office of General Services here in New York State are participating in the International Lights Out initiative. This is where state agencies are dimming the lights while birds are navigating the night sky. Light pollution can really negatively impact birds when they're trying to migrate. But you know all about this because you're our number one bird nerd.
I do, and I've have a lot of experience in Lights Out, and it's great to see the state doing this, and I think the governor under her leadership is really continuing this. And it is, people don't think about it, but it makes a big conservation impact because
Absolutely.
Bird collisions with glass and the disorientating effect that lights can have, turning them off at night really goes a long way. So thanks for highlighting that. It's always good to get outside this time of year. I mean, spring, everything coming back to life. So, Erica, we've talked about bears, birds, and now we're going to talk to Brendan Woodruff.
That's right.
And Pam Hadad-Hurst from our sustainability team. So, team, stay tuned. So every day is Earth Day here at Team DEC, and really we're pivoting now to what we can do every day around the state here to help make our lives more sustainable. We're proud to be joined by two members of our sustainability team here at DEC, Brendan Woodruff, Director of Sustainability, and Pam Hadad-Hurst, a Special Assistant to the Commissioner on all things sustainability as well. Thanks for being on the show, you two.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hi.
Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Oh, yes. That's what we'd like to hear, Brendan. So talk to us about sustainability. Obviously, we are an amazing agency of 3,000 people. We have 9 regional offices. We have a footprint of hundreds of buildings and infrastructure all over the state. That's a lot to maintain, but a lot that we need to green up. What are some of the ways that we're tackling that here at DEC?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is we really want to focus on leading by example. As you mentioned, Sean, we have a really large footprint across the state. We have over 2,100 facilities, over 1,800 buildings, over 1,800 light-duty fleet vehicles. So we have a large impact around the state. And what we really focus on is making sure that we're decreasing our environmental impact. So that's everything from reducing our greenhouse gas emissions to reducing the waste that we're generating to making sure that we're reducing the use of toxic substances and helping to enhance the habitats that we manage. And so we want to make sure that we're setting that example for others to be able to follow.
So what are some examples of that, Brendan? What are some of your favorite examples of things that DEC is leading on?
So a couple of my favorite projects that we're working on right now are, we have a lot of pollinator gardens throughout the state. So we're focusing on planting these gardens at our facilities. If folks are coming to our campgrounds, our day use facilities, they're probably going to see these out there. Hopefully they're in bloom when you're there. A lot of them are very beautiful. We're planting native species, and it's helping to protect our pollinator species such as birds and bees. In addition, we're doing a lot with getting more electric vehicles into our fleet. And so we're focusing on training our staff on how to make sure that they know how to use them, putting the charging infrastructure in place. And so as you might see a DEC vehicle passing you on the road, most likely in the future, it's going to be electric as we're working towards decreasing our emissions.
Which is so important overall to reaching our climate action plan goals here in the state. But Pam, why is this work important for a DEC to undertake?
Well, I think DEC has really been a leader, and we provide an example for other agencies to follow. So that's something that, part of the work that I do is I work on interagency sustainability. So while Brendan focuses mostly internally on DEC projects, I work more with other agencies to help them along and provide guidance and advice on how they can implement sustainability projects.
Pam, what does sustainability mean in general? When we talk about being sustainable, what are we trying to tell people?
Sure. Well, sustainability it's a broad term. It doesn't just mean we're working on climate. It doesn't mean we're just working on pollution prevention. We're looking at all of these things holistically. We're looking at how we can, reduce the use of resources and overall protect the environment.
Which is really important for what we're trying to accomplish across the board, and that was very helpful. But Pam, what are some of the ways why did you get involved in this work generally?
So I think I became an environmentalist when I was really young, and I had the experience of some clear cutting of forest across the street from my parents' house. And it really affected me, and I was worried about what was going to happen to the animals and that there were no more trees and green space, and it was very upsetting to me. So I think that was my initial inspiration, but I think I really got into protecting the environment when I was in college, and I joined an environmental club and took some classes in environmental science. I didn't end up majoring in environmental science. I took sociology, which I think at this point does help me in the work that I do, because a lot of what I'm doing is, we have to understand why people do the things that they do and, how we can help inspire them to do better. So.
Absolutely. I think it's every piece of our work. The more conversations I have with staff here at DEC, that personal interaction is critical to helping achieve our goals.
It is. I think, sustainability, our sustainability actions, here and, when we were working with other agencies is really all about building those relationships and building that trust and, helping to guide folks in the right direction. And it really is about people.
So when it comes to providing that sort of direction to people, inspiring at-home actions is sort of key. And I think, Brendan, you talked about leading by example here. What are some of the ways that we try and take the work that we're doing here at DEC and encourage people to follow our lead?
Yeah. And so a lot of it starts with our own staff. And I think, as Pam has mentioned here, it's when they come into the workplace, we meet people where they're at. We talk to them about what they're using every day, and how they're using our facilities. And so when we do things like install composting at our facilities and the ability to compost, folks are able to learn how to do it in the workplace. And then they're able to think, I can do this at home. And we know that sustainable actions are contagious. We know that one of the things that's the largest indicator of whether or not you will have solar panels on your house is if your neighbor does. And so when we inspire our people to be able to do these things, to learn about them in the workplace, they take them home, they inspire others around them, and that's how we really build this culture of sustainability, which I think is at the core of all of our programs.
I really like to show off my composting spinny wheel thing whenever I have people over.
It's fun. You need to do that, right?
It's fun.
We all need to lead by example, Erica. I think it's key. And
It's
I think
easy, too.
But Brendan, I think that's really important. And composting obviously is key, reducing food waste overall. What are some of the other key priorities that we're working on here at the department?
Yeah, so one of the things we recently did is we put out a sustainability plan for the agency. And this is the first time that DEC has created a holistic plan for our operations. And while a government plan sounds like something that's not all of that exciting, one of the things we really focused on is making it accessible to both our staff and the public. And so within this plan, we've identified key areas that we're going to focus on. We've talked about a few of them here today. So we're looking at reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, so installing solar panels on our buildings, getting electric vehicles in our fleet. We're also looking at how we can reduce our waste, so having more composting at our facilities, looking at ways that we can reduce the waste that we're generating in general, also looking at ways that we can inspire our employees, ways that we can communicate with the public. And one of the things that I love about what we've done is that we've shown our work, so that if folks are thinking about, I work at an organization, we haven't done a lot on sustainability yet. Where can we start? They can go to our website, they can look at our plan, and we've actually laid out step by step how we're doing it so other folks can follow our lead.
But my question is this, like, what are some of the challenges that you hear about every day from people you talk to, and how do we overcome those challenges?
Yeah, like any large initiative like this, I think one of the biggest challenges is meeting people where they're at, finding out why we're doing things the way we're doing them, and then inspire them to be able to go forward and provide the resources to them to do things in a more sustainable manner. So, for example, when we're talking about electric vehicles, there's a learning curve there. Many of the folks listening to this podcast may not have driven one yet. They may not have been in one. They may not know about some of the features and some of the bells and whistles of how they're different from driving regular vehicles. But what we want to be able to do is show people what this new technology is, how they can adapt it into our operations, into their own lives, and how it can ultimately improve their lives. So at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're educating folks, and we need to make sure that we're providing them with the ability to adopt these technologies. As I mentioned before, we need to meet people where they're at, and people are communicating in different ways now than they did in the past. And so we need to be meeting them on social media. We need to be providing funny content that has a serious background, that really builds, as I mentioned before, that culture of sustainability. We want folks to be able to learn about this stuff in an entertaining way, and we want to make sure that they are able to come along with us on this journey.
So Pam shared a little bit about how she became an environmentalist at a young age. Brendan, what was your path to DEC?
Yeah, so I would say it was a long and winding one. So like many people, as Pam had talked about before, there's kind of that moment, right, where you realize that, you know, there's issues with the environment that we need to deal with and we need to face. And for me, that was winter. And I know, Sean, you like to skate.
Yes, I do.
And for me growing up, I was always outdoors in the winter. Snow is just magical. You hear it falling. It's very peaceful. You know, I like to ski, cross country and downhill. And even by high school, you could see that the winters were not what they used to be. There was more rain in January and February. We didn't have the snowpack we used to have. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of why is this, learning more about climate change. And much like Pam, in college, I became much more involved. I was actually a history major. I thought I was going to follow in the family footsteps and become a social studies teacher, and went off the path there. But then I got more involved. I worked for some environmental organizations, and then eventually realized that DEC was a place where I wanted to be, where I felt that I could make a big difference. And so far it has been. I would say sustainability is a mindset. And so there's no one silver bullet. I think it's what's right for the person at the time. And so for everybody out there that's thinking about what can I do? You know, you think of DEC, you think we're the all-stars. We're talking about composting and EVs and solar panels. But really, everybody can make a difference. And it's what's right for you at the moment. Once you take that first step, whether it's putting a composting tumbler in your backyard, whether it's looking into an EV, whether it's finding ways to reduce the amount of waste you're generating, whether it's buying greener products, that's going to start to make a mark. And once you start going down this path, you start taking one action, then you start thinking about something else, and you start thinking about something else. And before you know it, this just becomes habits. And so my biggest advice for people is start small, find something that's right for you, and build upon it from there. There's no wrong way to do this.
We've talked about, a lot of the environmental quality side, right? Reducing carbon footprints, electrification, things like that. But actually some of the work we do in sustainability is focused on habitat and thinking about more the natural resource side of the equation. So, Brendan, what is a pollinator habitat, and what are we doing to create pollinator habitat?
Yeah, and so what we have really focused on is looking at our facilities and thinking about how we can improve them for birds, bees, bats, other critters that are out there, making it so that we can grow our food. Basically, at the end of the day, what pollinator protection is about is making sure that we have these available to keep our ecosystems healthy, pollinate our crops, and make sure that we can continue to enjoy what we enjoy. And so one of the things that we've really focused on is where can we take areas that we might have been mowing intensively or using for other purposes and plant native species. So whether it's flowers or other trees or other things that these native pollinators like. And so we're doing this at campgrounds, we're doing this at our offices, we're doing this all over the place. So if you visit one of our facilities, most likely you're going to see a little pocket of flowers there. And we do have some nice new pollinator signage. So be on the lookout for that.
Well, Pam and Brendan, we're very excited to have you on the show today. Thank you very much for coming in. And I hope these words of encouragement are taken up by New Yorkers that you hear today. There's a lot that you can do in your own backyard to really help these efforts, from planting a pollinator garden to standing up a compost pile to going solar or any of the other things we talked about today. But I think one of the ways we can really make sure that we're helping to reduce our emissions overall is in our commutes, and greening our commute is something that's really important. Brendan, do you want to just close out on what people can do to green their commute?
Yeah. And so one of the great events that we hold every year is Get Their Green. It takes place in September during Climate Week, and it's a way for New Yorkers to get involved in decreasing our emissions directly. And so what we ask folks to do during that week is to even just find one trip that they're taking and see if there's another way that you can take it than driving alone in a gasoline or diesel-powered car. So whether that's carpooling with somebody into the office, whether that's biking to the grocery store, whether that's taking transit and figuring out how to use it in your community, it makes a difference. And when all of us as New Yorkers are out there doing this, the results can be pretty impressive.
Brendan, Pam, thanks so much for joining DEC Does What today. This was a great walkthrough of how you can make every day Earth Day in your backyards. We really appreciate you being on the show today. But Erica, what do we have coming up next on DEC Does What?
On the next episode, we're going to be talking to just a few of the air quality experts we have here at DEC. You may not know it, but DEC has a team of meteorologists who are looking at air pollution. It's a little different than weather, and it's a little more unpredictable.
Well, I hope we don't breeze through that conversation, Erica, because I'm excited about what's coming up next.
Maybe not the best one, but if you're interested in learning more about any of the great stuff we talked about today, check out the DEC website and the podcast page.
And that is dec.ny.gov. So thanks for tuning in to DEC Does What?
And get outside.
DEC Does What? Is a production of DEC's Division of Communication, Education, and Engagement. Theme music is by Mike Menza. Like what you heard on this episode? Please leave a review or share this episode with others. Want to learn more about DEC's wide-ranging efforts to protect New Yorkers and the environment? Visit dec.ny.gov or connect with us on social media. You can find us using @NYSDEC. For more information on DEC Does What? Visit dec.ny.gov/podcast.